So in this video I'm going to show you how to make a patch for the montage that will work with the Roli Seaboard. So this is a similar sort of system that I did with the Blowfelt. I'll take a really basic sound, just a sawtooth wave, and show you how to make that playable expressively on with the Rise, the Roli Seaboard Rise. Obviously you want to make more fancy, more interesting patches than that, but this is just the basics to show you what's needed to make it playable. And I hope you'll use this to make really nice and playable, expressive patches. So we'll start from the beginning, as is traditional in the traditional Mark Pigott manner, and we're going to set up a very basic patch. So init patch, init normal, well there. And we're going to do part 1, edit, element 1, I'm going to use the OB saw, so we've got that. So I've got a nice boring sawtooth wave there, which does nothing particularly interesting, so that's a start. So the first thing we need to do is go to the amplifier EG, so we go to amplitude, amp generator. And the first thing I do here is set the time per velocity up to that. This is when you press a key, it'll work well with the velocity sensitivity of the brush. So you can press the key, push it down gently, and it'll gradually get louder. And we set that to attack so that the whole volume can get bigger, just not limited by how hard you initially press the key. That allows us to do some volume control with the pressure. What I'm going to do now is set up a filter. This is partly down to preference, but this is what I like to do. So I'm going to set up analog low pass filter. Set the cutoff right down to 0, as we did with the Blowfelt one. Give it some resonance, just to give it a bit more interesting sound. And we're going to use this for the slide. So the cutoff is down to 0. What we want to do when you slide up on the Seaboard, it will then open the filter. Now, unlike the Blowfelt, where I had to do some mapping in the door to make this happen with the mod wheel, we don't need to do that on the Montage, because the Montage conforms to standards quite nicely and accepts the brightness, which is by default what the Seaboard sends when you slide. So actually that is all you need to do to get a nice slide getting brighter on the Roli, which is really rather nice. So the next thing we need to do is go to Element All, and we turn the balance of that element right down to 0. So when you press a key, normally if you press a key on the Montage keyboard now, nothing happens. Okay, and the same will happen on the Roli. There's nothing we can do with lift on the Roli Seaboard because the Montage doesn't support release velocity, sadly. But it's only a minor loss. I think the rest of it, the things you can do, makes it worthwhile. So if we now go back to part settings, and we'll fill a few more of these in. So on general, we set key assign to single. That's important because I've found when I've been using the Roli Seaboard without that, I get stuck notes. That stops new notes being started when there's an existing note being played. I think the Roli seems to assume that only one note can play on each channel at a time. The other thing we do is we set the pitch bend to -12 and +12. That's for mine, because mine's a Roli Seaboard 24, so that gives the whole range of the keyboard. In fact, anything more than that can get a bit bitty anyway, as you can see the stair steps. But feel free to play with those as you like, obviously. Now, mod control is here where we make the aftertouch do the pressure. So I've got aftertouch on the display filter there, as you can see. The other way to do it is with auto select. Press a key, that'll bring up aftertouch. And then we assign that to element level and ratio right up to full, so we get the full range of the key press effects to volume. Now the curve standard, it's curved there set to standard, which is just a ramp. I prefer to have a sigmoid there, so I get a bit more control at the lower levels of pressure, but you might want to do that with the Seaboard itself. It's entirely up to you. I prefer sigmoid, you might not. So that gives us one part. Which we can affect the volume of using that, and we can do glide as well. Now that works fine for playing in single mode, but of course you want to use all the fancy features of the Roli, which allow you to do multiple pitch bending. So what we need to do now is to copy that to the next 8 parts, which is actually really easy and quite quick to do. So what we do, we press the name, copy 1 to 2, copy. The quickest way to copy that to an 8 is now press select on number 2 and do copy. And that will automatically come up with 2 to 3. If you select 1 again, it'll try and do 1 to 2, so you end up having to change it. So this is a lot quicker than just always copying part 1, as you can see. Easy as that. And the montage will automatically map part 1 to channel 1 on the MIDI, so that's the Roli sends different channel numbers per voice. That will just automatically get mapped to each of these voices on there. You'll need to change the number of MIDI channels used by the Seaboard from 10 to 8 and make it start at number 1, because by default it's 10, and if you don't do that, you'll end up with missing notes because the montage will only have 10. You can set up the montage to use 16 channels if you really want to, but I've not really found it necessary. Because that's mainly because I've got a 24. If you've got a 48 or the huge grand, then that might make more sense to you. But I find 8 works quite well. So that works really well. And I find the thing to remember now is when if you're setting up effects, I find it best to do the effects on the part level. Sorry, not the part level, on the performance level rather than on the part level. Otherwise, you having to change it on all of them. This way, if you set it on the part level, all of the voices will go through the same effects chain. You can have individual parts set separately if you want to use some of the fancier effects, but it means you need to keep them all in line over all 8 parts on there, which can be a bit of a nuisance. But of course, if you do that, then you can easily change the variation, reverb and sends on the montage front panel if you really want to. So that's what I do to use the Roli Seaboard with the montage. Give you a quick demo, and I hope you'll have fun with it yourself and see what sounds you can make. Thank you.